Hello and welcome to Digital Pulse, Episode 17. Today, we're diving deep into Fulfillment, Guide to Winning Life by Addison Clark.
Yeah. If you're looking to, build a more fulfilling life, this book claims to have the roadmap.
And we're going to help you navigate it.
That's right. We'll break down the key principles.
Yeah.
Explore what really stands out, and hopefully offer some thought-provoking insights along the way.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the book kicks off with this powerful section on peace.
Oh, okay.
But it's not about some idyllic, stress-free existence.
Mm-hmm.
Clark really argues that true peace, it comes from finding that inner freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Even amidst the chaos of life,
Right.
especially from those past experiences.
Yeah.
That can really weigh us down.
What's so interesting is how Clark reframes trauma. So often we see it as this defining characteristic,
Right.
this label that sticks with us.
Yeah.
But Clark says, no, you can view it as a turning point for growth, like a catalyst for transformation.
Right. And what's so powerful is that they don't just talk the talk.
Yeah.
Clark shares their own incredibly personal story of overcoming trauma.
Yeah.
Talks about facing fears head on,
Mm.
shifting those deeply ingrained mindsets, and learning to set healthy boundaries.
That vulnerability is so important because it shows that healing is possible,
Right.
but it's not passive.
Yeah.
It takes work, consistent effort, and a deep sense of self-compassion.
Hold on. What does Clark mean by self-compassion exactly?
Oh, that's a good question.
It's a term we hear a lot these days,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm curious how they define it, especially in the context of, healing from trauma.
Well, Clark sees self-compassion as this radical acceptance of our own imperfections and struggles,
Okay.
and treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we'd offer a close friend going through a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
Not beating ourselves up for past mistakes, but acknowledging our pain and allowing ourselves to heal. It's crucial.
I love that. It's not about, ignoring the negative, but approaching it with a gentler, more supportive attitude. Okay. So how does this idea of inner peace then connect to the next big theme in the book, which is relationships?
Ooh, that's a great transition, because cultivating this inner peace is a prerequisite for healthy relationships.
Okay.
Because, it's hard to build strong connections with others if we're, constantly battling that inner turmoil, right?
That makes total sense. And the book does a great job of, diving into both healthy and unhealthy relationship dynamics.
Yeah.
Using some real-life examples to illustrate the difference. One that really stood out to me was the math problem scenario.
Oh, yes, with the two friends and the offer to help with a math problem.
It's so relatable because it perfectly captures how disrespect can often hide in plain sight.
It does.
Disguised as jokes or teasing. And it highlights how important it is to recognize those subtle digs
Yeah,
and stand up for yourself when your boundaries are being crossed.
absolutely.
It's like that saying, death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the small, seemingly insignificant things that can chip away at our self-worth over time.
Exactly. And speaking of self-worth, Clark emphasizes that self-respect is the foundation for attracting healthy relationships.
Okay.
It's this powerful idea that the energy you give to yourself is what you receive from others.
I love that.
Right.
It's about setting the standard for how you expect to be treated, starting with how you treat yourself.
Right.
But how does that actually play out in the math problem scenario?
Ooh, okay.
It's one thing to talk about self-respect, but
Yeah.
how do you actually put it into action in a situation like that?
Well, that's where setting boundaries comes in. In that scenario, the person struggling with the math problem could have declined the offer of help.
Okay.
Politely, asserting their own capability and setting that boundary against a condescending gesture. It's about recognizing when something feels off and having the confidence to speak up for yourself.
Right. Even in those seemingly minor situations.
Yeah, it's so powerful. It's about recognizing that self-respect, it's not arrogance. It's about honoring your own worth and ensuring that others treat you accordingly.
Exactly. And it's ongoing, but essential for building healthy, fulfilling relationships.
Okay, so we've talked about peace and relationships.
Yeah.
What's next on Clark's roadmap to fulfillment?
Well, they dive into the power of mindset,
Okay.
offering some pretty interesting concepts for cultivating happiness. One that really resonated with me is called My Journey.
Okay.
And it encourages us to accept that some paths just aren't meant for us, no matter how badly we might want them.
Oh, tell me about it. I think we've all been down those roads clinging to something that's just not working. But what's the alternative? How do you just let go without feeling like you failed?
Well, that's the beauty of it. It's not about giving up. It's about recognizing when a particular path has run its course
Yeah.
and trusting that the right opportunities will align when we're truly on the right path.
It's almost like embracing the detours, knowing they might lead to something even better than what we originally planned. Exactly. It's shifting from disappointment to possibility.
I love that.
Yeah.
What other powerful mindsets does Clark offer?
Okay. Well, there's detachment. This one's inspired by Buddhist teachings.
Okay.
Now, I know that might sound a bit esoteric, but Clark makes it really relatable to everyday life.
Okay.
Essentially, it emphasizes appreciating the present moment without, clinging to the past or worrying about the future.
So being present and engaged in what's happening right now without getting caught up in all the mental chatter?
You got it. It's not about, suppressing emotions or ignoring problems. It's about acknowledging them without letting them consume us.
Finding that sweet spot of acceptance and engagement.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So much of our suffering does come from dwelling on the past or fretting about the future. Learning to detach from those thought patterns could be so freeing.
Absolutely. And then there's gratitude.
Okay.
Which might seem like a familiar concept in self-help, but Clark digs into the transformative power of appreciating those often overlooked blessings in our daily lives.
I'm all about gratitude. But what unique perspective does Clark bring to the table? It's easy to say, be grateful, but how do you cultivate that mindset consistently, especially when life throws those curveballs?
Well, that's where Clark's approach gets really interesting. They suggest keeping a gratitude journal, not just listing things we're thankful for, but going deeper into the why.
Okay.
Why are we grateful for this particular person, experience, or even material possession? What positive impact does it have? By exploring the why behind our gratitude, we deepen our appreciation and we cultivate a more enduring sense of contentment.
It's not just about going through the motions. It's actively engaging with those feelings of gratitude.
Yes, exactly. It's about shifting our focus from what we lack to what we have.
Right.
Which ultimately cultivates contentment and resilience.
Okay. So cultivating inner peace, nurturing healthy relationships, adopting these empowering mindsets, it sounds like we're building a pretty solid foundation for a fulfilling life.
It does.
But what about the more tangible aspects, like achieving success? Does Clark address that?
Absolutely. They break it down into 3 key areas: relationships, finances, and achieving our dreams. But here's the interesting thing. They argue that success in all these areas hinges on a common thread:
Oh, okay. What's that?
setting standards.
Okay, so it's not just about striving for success. It's about defining what success actually means to you.
Exactly. Especially in relationships.
Okay.
Clark emphasizes, knowing what you deserve and refusing to settle for less.
Right.
It's about having that self-respect and understanding that you're worthy of a relationship that's healthy, supportive, and fulfilling.
I love that. And it ties back to that idea of self-worth we talked about earlier.
Yes.
You have to believe you deserve the best to attract it.
Absolutely.
But what about the financial side of things? Does Clark offer any practical advice for achieving financial success?
Oh, absolutely. They provide tips on budgeting, investing, and even identifying unconventional income opportunities.
Okay.
It's all about thinking outside the box when it comes to finances, moving beyond that traditional 9-to-5 grind, and exploring ways to monetize existing skills and interests.
So it's not just about working harder, it's about working smarter and tapping into those unique talents and passions.
Exactly. Clark encourages us to, shift away from that mindset of trading time for money.
Right.
And start thinking about how we can leverage our passions and skills to create real value and generate income on our own terms.
That's so empowering.
It is.
It's about taking control of your financial destiny rather than feeling trapped in a system that doesn't serve you. But I'm curious, does Clark address the whole money mindset thing? I've heard a lot about that lately, but I'm not quite sure what it means.
They do. In fact, they dedicate an entire section to it. And it's a fascinating concept. Clark suggests that money is an abundant energy that responds to our beliefs and actions.
Wait, hold on. Money is an energy. That sounds a bit woo-woo even for me.
It does.
Can you break that down a bit? What do they mean by that?
It's a metaphor, of course.
Okay.
But the idea is that our thoughts and beliefs about money can actually influence our financial reality. If we're constantly focusing on, scarcity and lack, we're likely to just attract more of the same. But if we cultivate that abundance mindset, believing there's enough to go around and we're worthy of receiving it, then we open ourselves up to greater financial flow.
Okay. So it's about shifting your perspective from, I can't afford this, to how can I create the abundance to afford this?
Yes.
It's about seeing possibilities instead of limitations.
Exactly. And it's not just about positive thinking. Clark emphasizes the importance of taking inspired action toward those financial goals.
Right.
It's about aligning our thoughts, our beliefs, and our actions to create that financial reality we desire.
I love that. So it's about taking responsibility for your financial well-being.
Yes.
And recognizing that you do have the power to change your circumstances. But what about the other aspect of success, the whole achieving our dreams thing? Does Clark offer any guidance on that?
Oh, they're all about action. They encourage us to identify our goals, break them down into smaller steps, and then just go for it. And they remind us that failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the journey. And that with dedication and perseverance, we can achieve anything we set our minds to.
So it's about getting out of those comfort zones and taking those scary leaps of faith. But how do you overcome the fear of failure? That's always been a big one for me.
Well, Clark acknowledges that fear is a natural part of the process, but they encourage us to reframe failure as a learning opportunity,
Okay.
a chance to kind of course correct and come back stronger. They remind us that even the most successful people have faced countless setbacks. It's about embracing the journey, knowing there will be ups and downs, but that we have the resilience to keep moving forward.
It's about celebrating the wins, but also learning from those losses and using them as fuel to propel us forward.
Exactly. And to drive home the point, Clark even shares their own dream of creating a world-famous manga series, which they're actively pursuing. It's inspiring to see someone, walking the walk.
Putting their own advice into practice.
Yeah.
It shows that they're not just preaching from a pedestal.
Yeah.
They're in the trenches with us, figuring it out as they go along.
Exactly.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how do all these different aspects of fulfillment, peace, relationships, mindset, success, how do they all connect to the final piece of the puzzle, which is health?
Ooh, that's a great question. And it's something Clark addresses quite beautifully. They see health as the foundation,
Okay.
upon which all other aspects of fulfillment rest.
That makes sense.
After all, it's hard to experience true peace or joy or success if we're constantly battling physical or mental health challenges.
Right. It's like trying to build a house on shaky ground. You need that solid foundation to support everything else.
Exactly. And they approach health holistically, addressing both internal health, meaning what we put into our bodies, and physical health, which focuses on movement and exercise.
So it's about nourishing our bodies from the inside out
Yes.
and keeping them moving.
You got it. And to really illustrate the importance of these choices, Clark shares a powerful anecdote comparing their two grandfathers,
Oh, yeah.
who had very different approaches to health.
I remember that.
Yeah.
One prioritized his health, stayed active, ate a balanced diet. The other, unfortunately, kind of neglected his health and ended up struggling with various ailments later in life. It's a stark reminder that we do have a lot more control over how we age than we might think.
We do, and that's a perfect segue into our next segment where we'll delve deeper into Clark's specific recommendations for diet and exercise. But first, what stands out to you most from this initial exploration? What's resonating with your personal pulse?
Yeah, it's amazing how just those small everyday choices, can really have such a big impact on our well-being in the long run.
Yeah, it makes you think you're not just making choices for today, but shaping our future selves, with every bite we take and every step we choose to take or not take, as the case may be.
That's so true. It's not about being perfect, but about making, conscious choices to support ourselves.
Yeah.
So what about diet? What are Clark's recommendations for that? You mentioned internal health. Does that mean they're advocating for any specific type of diet?
Well, they don't really endorse any specific diet plan, but they do emphasize whole, unprocessed foods as much as possible. Ditch the packaged stuff and go for fresh fruits and veggies, lean proteins, and healthy fats.
Basically eating like our grandparents did before all the processed foods took over.
Exactly. Getting back to basics, nourishing our bodies with real nutrient-dense foods. And they even provide, specific daily intake recommendations for certain nutrients.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of nutritional breakdown are we talking?
Well, Clark suggests aiming for around 100 grams of protein per day, along with, adequate amounts of zinc, healthy fats, and magnesium, and, of course, plenty of fruits and veggies, and incorporating those whole grains for that energy.
It's interesting that they specify the grams of protein.
Yeah.
Is there a particular reason they focus on that?
Well, they see protein as like a key building block, for muscle growth and repair, hormone production, and immune function. They believe that a lot of people just aren't getting enough protein for optimal health.
Okay, makes sense. Protein is definitely having a moment right now, and not just in the fitness world.
It is.
Okay, so what about exercise? What does Clark recommend for maintaining physical health?
They advocate for at least 10 to 20 minutes of intense exercise 4 days a week.
Intense exercise. So does that mean hitting the gym hard, or can you achieve that intensity through other activities?
That's a good question. And Clark's pretty flexible here. They emphasize it's not about the type of exercise, but about pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone and getting your heart rate up.
Okay.
So that could be HIIT, a brisk run, a challenging hike, or even a dance class, anything that gets you moving and breathing hard.
I like that. It's about finding what you enjoy and that fits your lifestyle. It doesn't have to be, suffering through grueling workouts.
Right. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're challenging yourself, but also having fun and feeling good. And they also stress giving your body rest and recovery time.
Yeah, rest days are just as important as those workout days.
They are. It's about listening to your body and not pushing to burnout.
For sure. It's about sustainability.
Mm-hmm. Clark reminds us that fitness is a journey, not a destination, and that taking care of ourselves physically is an investment in our overall well-being.
What strikes me is that Clark really emphasizes how all of these elements connect. Peace relationships, mindset, success, health, they all kind of feed into each other.
They do. And that's an important takeaway. It's not about thinking about these things separately,
right,
but about recognizing that they're intertwined and that when you make positive changes in one area, it can have a ripple effect on everything else.
It's a holistic way to live a more fulfilling life. It's not about focusing on just one thing, but about nurturing every aspect of ourselves.
Absolutely. And one section I thought was really interesting was Clark's discussion of what they call making the choice to be happy. It's a powerful reminder that, we're not just victims of our circumstances. We have the power to choose our thoughts, our beliefs, and ultimately our happiness.
I mean, that's a powerful concept, but it's easier said than done right.
Yeah.
What if you're dealing with depression or going through a really hard time? It can feel like happiness is impossible.
That's where the choice comes in. Clark acknowledges that life is tough, and sometimes happiness feels far away.
Yeah.
But they argue that even then, we can still choose to shift our perspective, to focus on what's good, and cultivate positive emotions. It's not about denying the bad stuff.
Right.
It's about choosing to focus on what gives you strength, not what drains you.
So acknowledge it, but don't let it control you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about realizing we have a choice in how we respond to life's challenges. And Clark even shares their personal experience with depression.
Really?
Talking about how they chose to turn things around.
Wow. What did that look like for them?
Well, they described this moment when they were struggling with depression and feeling really hopeless. But then they realized they were the only one who could change things. So they started focusing on the positive, practicing gratitude, replacing those negative thoughts with more empowering ones.
That's a lot of courage and self-awareness.
It is. And Clark's clear that it wasn't a quick fix. It was an everyday thing, a conscious effort to retrain their brain.
And over time, it became a new way of being.
It's like rewiring your brain for happiness.
Yeah.
But is that really possible? Can you just choose to be happy even when things are falling apart?
Right. That's the question.
Well, that's it.
And Clark says yes.
Yeah.
They believe that happiness is a skill you can build.
Okay.
Through practice and effort.
Yeah.
And while it's not always easy, they say it's a choice we can all make.
That's inspiring, but it sounds like hard work. So what can people actually do to, cultivate a more positive mindset and choose happiness?
That's where the real work begins.
Yeah. And Clark gives some great advice. One thing is removing negativity from our lives. Not just our own thoughts, but also what we consume and the people around us.
Okay, so being mindful of the information we take in and the company we keep.
Exactly. They talk about how, what we watch and read can affect our mood. If we're constantly bombarded with negativity, it's tough to stay positive. So be more selective about the news, the shows you watch, and even social media.
Creating a positive and supportive environment for ourselves.
Yes, both internally and externally.
And that includes the energy we bring to our relationships too,
Yeah.
right? Being around positive and supportive people can really make a difference.
It can. It's about finding those connections that lift you up, encourage you, and help you grow.
Choosing to be around people who bring out the best in us.
Yes, creating a community that supports your journey to fulfillment, whatever that looks like for you.
Okay, so we've talked about cultivating a more positive mindset and choosing happiness.
Yeah.
But what about success in other areas like relationships and finances and achieving our dreams?
Right. Well, Clark emphasizes setting standards in all these areas, having goals and taking action.
So it's not enough to just dream big.
Yeah.
You need a plan and then you have to actually do something.
Yeah, exactly. For relationships, Clark says, define what you want in a partner and don't settle for less.
Okay.
It's about knowing what you're worth and being confident enough to walk away if things aren't right.
Choosing someone who compliments and supports you and helps you be your best, not someone who drains you or makes you feel bad about yourself.
Right. And for finances, they give advice on budgeting, investing, and even finding those unusual ways to make money. Think beyond the typical job and explore how to make money from your hobbies and skills.
Taking control and finding creative ways to make money that you actually enjoy.
Exactly. And remember, that whole money is energy thing.
Yeah, the idea that how we think about money can affect our finances.
Right. Well, they explore this further, suggesting that money responds to our energy and intentions. They say the more we focus on abundance and giving back, the more we attract financial success.
So it's not about just hoarding money, it's about sharing it and using it to do good.
Exactly. They use this example of actors and farmers. Both provide essential services, but actors often earn more because they reach more people.
Interesting. So it's not just the value of the service you provide, but also how many people you impact.
Exactly. And while we may not all be actors, they encourage us to think about how we can expand our reach and impact more people. It's about finding ways to contribute our unique talents and do something good in a way that creates value and generates abundance.
I love that. It's not just about personal gain. It's about making a difference.
And speaking of making a difference that brings us to achieving our dreams, Clark is all about action. They say identify your goals, make a plan, and go for it.
Having the courage to go after those big dreams, even when they feel impossible, I think that's something a lot of people struggle with. It's scary to put yourself out there and risk failing.
Clark gets that fear is normal.
Right.
But encourages us to see failure as a chance to learn, to adjust and come back stronger. They remind us that even super successful people have messed up countless times. It's about embracing the whole journey with its ups and downs and knowing that we can bounce back.
It's about not letting fear stop you, but using it to move you forward.
Right. And to really show they mean it, Clark talks about their own dream of creating a famous manga series, which they're working on now.
Wow.
It's inspiring to see them actually doing it, living by their own advice.
It shows they're not just talking. They're doing it too.
Right.
Figuring things out along the way. So that's encouraging. But how does all of this connect to health? We have peace relationships, mindset, success. How do those all link to health?
That's a great question. Clark actually makes this connection really well. They see health as the base for everything else. It's hard to truly feel peace or happiness or succeed if you're constantly struggling with your physical or mental health.
Yeah, it's like building a house on unsteady ground. You need a solid foundation for everything to stand on.
Exactly. They approach health in a holistic way, looking at both what we put into our bodies and how we move our bodies.
So nourishing ourselves from the inside and out and keeping active.
Yes. And to really show how important this is, they share a story about their two grandfathers who had completely different approaches to health.
I remember that. One took care of his health, stayed active, and ate well. The other didn't, and ended up having health problems later in life.
Right.
It's a reminder that we have a lot of control over how we age.
We do. And that leads us perfectly into our next part, where we'll get into Clark's specific recommendations for diet and exercise. But first, what are your thoughts so far? What's sticking with you? What resonates with your goals?
Yeah, it's like it all comes full circle, right?
Yeah.
From finding that inner peace to building those strong relationships, and then cultivating a more positive mindset, achieving success, and prioritizing our health. It really is like a holistic approach to living a fulfilling life.
Yeah, it really is. And, it's not about achieving some sort of picture-perfect ideal. It's more about progress, not perfection.
Right.
It's making those choices that align with our values and move us closer to the lives that we want to create.
Speaking of conscious choices, I wanted to circle back to something that we talked about a bit earlier, this idea that money is a mindset. It's a concept that keeps coming up, and I'm still kind of grappling with it a little bit.
It is a powerful concept, and one that can be a little bit challenging to grasp, at first.
Yeah.
Remember that Clark is using energy as a metaphor here to describe how our thoughts and beliefs about money can actually shape our financial reality.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that money isn't just this static thing,
Right.
but a dynamic force
Okay.
that responds to our energy and intention.
So if we approach money with fear and scarcity, we're likely to repel it. But if we cultivate more of an abundance mindset, believing that there's enough to go around and that we're worthy of receiving it, we open ourselves up to greater financial flow. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And it's not just about positive thinking either. It's about aligning our actions with our beliefs.
Okay.
Taking inspired action toward those financial goals, but also cultivating a sense of generosity and gratitude for what we already have.
So it's kind of a two-pronged approach, like taking practical steps to, manage our finances wisely, but also shifting our internal dialogue about money.
Exactly. And Clark even delves into the concept of karma and how it relates to money, suggesting that the more we give, the more we receive.
That's interesting. So it's not about hoarding wealth, but circulating it and using it to make a positive impact.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that money is a tool that can be used to create good in the world.
Yeah.
And that the more we focus on, giving back and contributing to something larger than ourselves, the more abundance we invite into our own lives.
And they use the example of actors versus farmers.
Yes.
To illustrate this point.
Right.
Both provide essential services to society, but actors often earn significantly more because they have a wider reach, right?
Right.
Impacting a larger audience.
Exactly. It highlights the importance of thinking about how we can kind of expand our impact and create value on a larger scale.
So if we want to kind of attract more abundance into our lives, we need to kind of shift our focus from scarcity to generosity, finding ways to give back and make a positive difference in the world. It's kind of a beautiful way to tie everything together, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Fulfillment isn't just about personal happiness.
Right.
It's about living a life of purpose and contribution. And that's what Addison Clark's book really encourages us to do, to choose fulfillment, choose peace, choose happiness, success, and health, and to recognize that we have the power to create those lives that we desire.
Such a powerful message. It's a call to action to stop settling for mediocrity and to step into our full potential. Yeah. It's about taking ownership of our lives and making those conscious choices that align with our values and aspirations.
Absolutely. It's remembering that we're not just passengers on this journey called life.
Yeah.
We are the drivers.
Right.
And we have the power to choose our destination. And to create that roadmap that leads us to a life filled with purpose and joy and fulfillment.
This deep dive has been such an insightful journey.
It has.
I feel like we've uncovered so many gems along the way.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely walking away with a renewed sense of hope and possibility.
Me too. It's been a pleasure exploring fulfillment at Guide to Winning Life with you, and I really hope our listeners feel inspired to embark on their own journeys of self-discovery and create those lives that are truly fulfilling.
And as always, keep those brains buzzing, folks.
Yes.
Until next time.